This is Dr. Munir Umar. Welcome to the course Network Security. In today's lecture, we will be studying security attacks. This is the first lecture about security attacks. In this lecture, we will have some basic definitions and also will know about the fundamental attacks. Then in the second lecture, we will look into some advanced form of attacks. In network security, threats are malicious acts intended to compromise the confidentiality, integrity, or availability of digital assets. A threat can be an object, person, or any other entity that represents a constant danger to an asset. Major threats include ransomware, phishing, malware, AI powered attacks, and insider threats. So, protecting networks requires multi layered defense strategies such as firewalls, intrusion detection systems, intrusion prevention systems, and user education to mitigate risks. So let's consider some scenarios. Actually, I want to show you the two major types of attacks. These are active attacks and passive attacks. So this is the scenario number one, and here we have two cases. The first one is release of message content, and the second one is traffic analysis. Here, two users, Bob and Alice, they are communicating with each other. So they are connected through internet or some other communication facility. So in between, there is an intruder, the man in the middle, that is Dot. So what happens when Bob sends data to Alice? That data is already read by the Dot in the middle way. So in this way, Dot reads the content of message from Bob to Alice. In second case, the Dot observe pattern of messages from Bob to Alice, like what type of messages Bob is sending to Alice, what is the delay, what is the topic, and so on. So we have two things: release of message content and traffic analysis. This was the scenario number one. Now we have scenario number two. In this scenario, we have four cases. In the first case, Bob and Alice, they are connected with one another. But what happens? The Dot messages to Alice and shows that he is Bob. Dot pretends to be a legitimate person, so this is known as masquerade. The second scenario is about replay. Here, the Dot captures the message from Bob and keep it for some time, and after a particular period of time, then sends that message to Alice. Also, the Dot can send that message multiple times. Third case is modification of messages. In this case, the Dot captures the message from the communication medium. That message is generated by Bob, and Dot modifies that message from Bob to Alice. So this is known as modification of messages. The last one is denial of service. Dot tries to disrupt service provided by the server. The dot sends multiple messages, multiple requests to the server. So the server gets busy with dot and becomes unavailable for Bob. So we looked into two scenarios. The first one was about the release of message content and traffic analysis, and second scenario includes masquerade, replay, modification of messages, and denial of services. So in these two scenarios, we have two classes of attacks. These are passive attacks and active attacks. Now, I think I should define these two attacks. So, passive attack, network attack, in which a system is monitored and sometimes scanned for open ports and vulnerabilities. Now, if you look into this scenario, here the intruder is monitoring or reading the messages of Bob. The purpose is solely to gain information about the target and no data is changed on the target. This is passive attack. The active attacks are carried to directly harm the information or the network. An active attack could also be made to target information by altering it in some way. Now, if you look into this scenario number 2, here the dot is altering or damaging the communication between Bob and Alice. It is like direct harm for the communication. So in this way, the communication is harmed or destroyed, that is made between two nodes or more than two nodes, and this thing is solely done for some malicious purposes. Now we have some types of active attacks and passive attacks. Under active attacks, we have denial of service, distributed denial of service, session replay, masquerade, message modification, and trojans. Under passive attacks, we have snooping and traffic monitoring and analysis. Now let's have some basic definitions. First, we have malicious node and selfish node. Malicious node is actually a node that is seeking to deny services to other nodes, and the main purpose of malicious node is to harm the network or to harm the communication between nodes. So we can say that the malicious nodes disrupt, damage, or compromise network operations and security. While in case of selfish node, these nodes actually conserve their own resources, like they conserve their battery power and bandwidth, and they use network services without contributing back. So these are two common nodes. These are two misbehaving nodes. Then we have external sniffer. By external sniffer, we mean a program and/or a device that monitors data traveling over a network. So sniffers can be used for legitimate as well as for stealing information from the network. Usually, we install these sniffers on our servers to monitor the traffic over the network. But these sniffers can also be installed by the attackers, by the intruders, to have a passive attack on the network, to know about the data exchanges and to know about the vulnerabilities inside the network. Next is snooping. By snooping, we mean unauthorized access to some private data or system, like a system is meant for a manager, so uh, other employees cannot use that system. So if an employee from the organization this way or that way get access into that system, then it would be known as snooping. Next is traffic monitoring and analysis. This is also a passive attack. By traffic monitoring and analysis, we mean that reading data from network to check its traffic patterns. The traffic pattern, this is very important to know the vulnerabilities and open ports inside the network. So when the traffic patterns are known, then the attacker can conclude some important decisions and find some vulnerabilities about the network. Next is communication jamming. So jammers are very common and they can be used to disrupt the radio signals by decreasing the signal to noise ratio. I think you would have seen jammers inside some protected buildings, like even in mosques, where the mobile phones stop working because these jammers they generate a similar frequency range that becomes noise with the actual signal, and the signal to noise ratio is highly decreased. Next is eavesdropping. Eavesdropping means secretly listening to a connection between two devices, like two persons they are communicating with one another. So if a third person is secretly listening to them, then this is known as eavesdropping. Next is message interception. Message interception is by the man in the middle. So the middleman changes the messages and pretends that he is authentic for both ends of the channel. It's an active attack, and this is done by the man in the middle. This is a direct change in the messages, the modification in the data that has been exchanged between two ends. Next is service disruption. Service disruption can be done by the DDoS or DOS attacks, like the availability of a system is affected. So the disturbing or creating problems which stops a system to serve. The simplest way is to send a burst of requests to a server and get the server engaged with those requests. So in this way, the server would not be able to answer legitimate requests from others. Then we have session hijacking. Session hijacking means taking control over session that is already established between two devices. So whenever two devices start communication, they initially create a session between them. So that session can be hijacked, like the attacker can pretend to be the second end of the communication and start communication, start session with the first end. Then masquerading where the attacker pretends to be to be authorized user of a system in order to gain access to it or to gain greater privileges that they are authorized for. Like the attacker can get the ID or ID and password of a system, and using those ID and password they can get into the system and do something that is not authorized for them. Next is Trojan horse. Trojan horse is actually or malware, an application which gives something to be used, but in the back end performs something malicious or steals information. Like we download some unknown applications from internet, like we download a free game. So it is shown as a game and we use it, we play it, but in fact that application sends data from our system in the background. Then replay, in which a valid data transmission is maliciously or fraudulently repeated or delayed. Uh, the attacker captures the packet from in between, keep the packets for some time, and then retransmit those packets toward the destination. And also, these packets can be repeatedly retransmitted. Detailed explanation about some important type of attacks. The first one is spoofing. Spoofing means fake identity. Let me show you this thing. Here we have a system having IP address 1234. So what happens in this type of attack? The attacker creates a spoofed IP address that resembles the IP address of a legitimate system. The actual IP address of the attacker is different. By using some tools, the IP address of the attacker is changed here and it is made as of the legitimate system. The attacker will pretend to be a legitimate user and the web server will respond accordingly. So spoofing means fake identity. It can be identity spoofing, IP address spoofing, or MAC address spoofing. Spoofing is the art of pretending to be something other than what you are, like you change your identity. Spoofing attacks consist of replacing the valid source and or destination IP address and node numbers with false one. The spoofing attacks involved in most attacks because it grants attackers the ability to hide their identity through misdirection. So it's very famous kind of attack. This can also be used by having stolen username and password, and the access can be gained by using these usernames and passwords. So this can be used in impersonation and masquerading attacks. Next is man in the middle. Two systems are communicating. The user is communicating with a web application server. So we can have a scenario where a person, an attacker in the middle, read all this data and may do something malicious with the data that is sent by the user or by the web application server. So this perpetrator is known as man in the middle. A man in the middle attack occurs when a malicious user is able to gain a position between the two endpoints of a communication link. Like here we have two endpoints. This is in between these two endpoints. There are two types of man in the middle attacks. One involves copying or sniffing the passive attack, and the other making some active attacks. So attacks, the man in the middle can store and forward the data, do some proxy mechanism. The attacker functions as the receiver for data transmitted by the client and transmitter for data sent to the server. In this case, the attacker is invisible to both ends and they feel that they are communicating with one another. Next is sniffer. Sniffer is also known as snooping attack. It's an activity that results in malicious user obtaining information about a network or the traffic over the network. Sniffer is also a kind of man in the middle. Sniffers, they usually connect with the servers or intermediate devices from where they sniff data that is transmitted from one end to another. Sniffers can be software or can be hardware. So, sniffer attacks often focus on initial connections between clients and servers to obtain login credentials like username and passwords. They can steal secret keys and so on. So, when performed properly, sniffing attacks are invisible to all other entities on the network and often precede spoofing or hijacking attacks. Of attack is phishing. In phishing, the attacker first of all sends an email to the victim asking for something. The victim replies that email by logging into a phishing website, and by using that phishing fake website, the attacker gets the credentials of the victim. So once the credentials are received, after that the attacker can use those credentials to log in into the legitimate email. For example, this is an email received. It says that your bank account has been suspended. Now if the user clicks this link, it will take the user to a fake website of the bank. That would be a phishing website, that would be a malicious website, and by using that website, the attacker, the person who sent that fake email, will receive the credentials of the victim. So, phishing is a cyber attack that uses email as a weapon. The goal is to trick the email recipient into believing that the message is something they want to need. A request from their bank, for instance, or a note from someone in their company. This can also be an email to reset the password of an email account. Sometimes we receive an email that your account is going to be blocked. So if the given link is clicked, then the victim shifted to a phishing website. Sometimes with that link we also get something malicious inside the downloads. So what really distinguishes the phishing is the form of message takes. The attackers masquerade as a trusted entity of some kind, often a real or plausibly real person or a company the victim might do business with. Next is cyber extortion. Cyber extortion occurs when cyber criminals threaten to disable the operations of a target business or compromise its confidential data unless they receive a payment. The two most common types of cyber extortion are ransomware and DDoS attacks. We will study these two in the coming slides. Now, this is an example of cyber extortion. Then, ransomware. For cyber extortion, I'm also showing my email inbox. A few days ago, I received an email. Actually, it's a junk. Now, this one, look at this email. This is identity spoofing. And now I received this email from my account ID. How is it possible? They used some tools to spoof my email address. In this email, they say that they have access to my system and they have all the credentials stored in my system, and at the end they are asking for some ransom so that they don't make public my credentials. So this is cyber extortion. This is a kind of phishing. Is a malware that is typically distributed via emails, infected website, or fraudulent network. What happens in ransomware? We get an attachment. In that attachment, attach a malware, a software. So when we click that malware, then entire documents within our system, they got encrypted. Cyber criminals use these emails and websites to trick their recipients and visitors into clicking on infected links. So they download the malicious software. The software then proceeds to encrypt victims' files, rendering their computers and networks unstable. They are actually blackmailers. They contact the victim, offering to decrypt their files for a fee. Now look here. This is a tool, and now this is a Word file in encrypted form. Okay, the next type of attack is denial of service attack. This is very famous type of attack. A denial of service attack is a cyber attack that renders a computer, network, or website unavailable by users by flooding it with excessive traffic or malicious requests, forcing it to slow down or crash. We have another type of attack also, that is known as distributed denial of service. So the distributed denial of service attack uses multiple sources, while the typical DOS attack uses only one source. Now here in this case, the attacker is using a bot. Bot means a compromised system that is acting maliciously. The bot sends millions of synchronization packets, TCP SYN packets, to the target server. So these flooded packets are spoofed, like the actual port number or the IPs are fake. So the server starts responding these packets. Since these are flooded, these are in large number, so due to the large number of these packets, the target server gets stuck and becomes unavailable for authentic users. Denial of service attacks are attacks that prevent the system from processing or responding to legitimate traffic or requests for resources and objects. The most common form of DOS attacks is transmitting so many data packets to a server that it cannot process them all. Now, the distributed denial of service, as I told you, the distributed denial of service attacks use multiple sources. So, a DDoS occurs when the attacker compromises several systems and uses them as launching platforms against one or more victims. Now, here the attacker compromise many bots, many systems. These are known as bots. So, these bots work under the agenda of attacker and they start flooding the targeted server. The compromised systems used in the attack are often called slaves or zombies. A DDoS attack results in the victims being flooded with data from numerous sources. These type of attacks are labeled as distributed because a large number of systems are involved in the propagation of attacks against the victim. The attacker, first of all, sent some sort of script to normal systems and they got tricked. They click that script and the script gets executed. So once the script is in running position, after that the compromised system becomes zombie or slave of the attacker, and in the background that compromised system starts flooding the targeted server. So in this way the targeted victim or server becomes unavailable for legitimate requests. So this was all about the security attacks. In the next lecture, we will look into some advanced attacks. So see you in the next lecture and thank you for watching and listening. You can contact me via my email for queries and comments. Thank you.